Today, since I'm not in class, I'm going to quickly do a podcast on our topic of quadratics. Now, a lot of this will be review, but bear with me as we go through this. One of the things that quadratics always is any scenario that deals with an x squared. And typically, quadratics are written ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is like y equals, or maybe equals 0, or f at x. And these are typically parabolas, opening up, opening down, etc. Today we are going to largely deal with solving quadratics. We are going to solving quadratics. And when we solve quadratics, there are 5 ways that we do that. The first way is factoring. Okay, so here's an example. And factoring is the one that you're most common with. If I have a scenario of 2x squared minus x minus 15 equal to 0. Factoring just means we do this. Now, there are many ways to teach this, but you choose the way that works for you. There's no square there, of course, so it breaks down into 2x and x and into 5 and 3. This one here ends up being the positive, and this one here is the negative. And so 2x plus 5 is 0, so x equals minus 5 over 2, or x equals 3. So factoring, that's one way that we solve things, which you guys know fairly well. The second way that we solve quadratics is by graphing. Okay? And if we look at this Wolfram Alpha site that I typed it in, if you look here, I've already typed in the equation, and it goes and it graphs it. Here's my graph, my parabola, and the answers are simply the x-intercepts here. And what those x-intercepts are, this one here is 5 over 2, and this one here is 3 and negative. Okay, so your calculator will do this, and that's your best tool that you have available to you. Okay, the next way that we do solving quadratics is the square rooting scenario. Now this is the square root. Now, this technique only works when you have certain types of problems. So if I had a question that looked like this, 2x minus 5 squared minus 16 equal to 0. This is the kind of scenario where we use a square root. I could multiply this all out, collect like terms and factor, or simply I could bring the 16 over, divide by 2, take the square root, x equals minus 5 equals the square root of 8, which plus or minus, don't forget the plus or minus. And so I get x equals 5 plus or minus 2 root 2. And these are my 2 solutions, the positive one, the negative one. And so that one works really nice as well. The fourth scenario we have is called completing the square. Okay, this is the one that I had you guys do before you could come into class. It was your ticket to start, so to speak. And we're going to go through a little bit. I'm going to complicate the matter a little bit more by putting a coefficient in front. So let's consider this here, 2x squared plus 6x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, now what completing the square ultimately means is that I'm going to have to do x with a squared here. This is the completed square. It's not in there at all. So I have to change this to something that looks like this. To do it, I'm going to concentrate on that to start off with. I'm going to pull out a factor of 2. So I have 2, parenthesis, x squared plus 3x. And I'm going to ignore the 5. Here's where the completing the square part comes in. I take half of this value here. I take this value, I take half of it. And it's positive, it stays positive, so I get positive 3 over 2. Now, and I'm going to have a 2 here. And of course, I still have minus 5. Now, this equation does not equal the same as this. Because inside the calculation in this area, if I multiply this out, I get x squared plus 3x plus this term squared. So I get inside here is a plus 9 over 4. I've added 9 over 4 here times 2, so I must also subtract the 3 over 2, which is 9 over 4 squared times 2. It is always, always, always this value squared times the coefficient. Subtract it. So now it's just a matter of solving this now. So I have 2 x plus 3 halves squared minus 5 minus 9 fourths times 2. Keep on going. Oh, and I get 2 x plus 3 halves squared. That becomes a 2. So this is 10 halves, so negative 19 halves. Bring it over, it'll be positive. Divide by 2. And I'm going to have to go over to the right side because I'm running out of space. And I'm going to get, going to here, I get x plus 3 halves squared is equal to 19 over 4. I take the square root of both sides. And I get x plus 3 halves equals plus or minus the square root of 19 over 2, which is negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 19 all over 2. This is solving by completing the square. All right, so now we do have yet a fifth way, and the fifth way is by the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula you all know to be x equals minus b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now there's a song that this does, and you can ask me to sing it sometime if you'd like, or maybe you can sing it for me if you know it. To get the quadratic formula is as such. Actually, I'm going to do that on a different podcast, and this is getting long enough. I'm going to stop